Welcome back to another episode of Making Bank with Monkey Knife Fight, presented by True North Fantasy Football. Trav here, as always, coming live from Dirty Laundry Studios. And tonight, I have another guest on Making Bank, another part of the True North crew, a member of the A-Team, if you will. I've got Brian Bailey, better found on Twitter at the FF Aviator. Brian, how you doing, my man? Welcome to the show.
Good, man. I'm doing good. Glad to be here on my first pod with you, or live, or stream, whatever we're doing.
Same deal. It's all podding, my man. So I'm excited that we are getting your feet wet on Making Bank. It's this is something that I've kind of been wanting to do, is get some of the True North guys on with me, so people don't just have to look at my ugly mug. So I appreciate you joining, and I'm excited to get into it. So real quick, I just want to say a quick word for Monkey Knife Fight. If you want the best DFS player prop games in the industry, jump onto Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight is sweeping the nation right now, and we at True North are proud to be doing it along with them. They've got games for all sports and skill levels that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat, with endless opportunity to watch your winnings pile up. With our promo code TNFF, Monkey Knife Fight will match your first deposit up to $50. So sign up now with our promo code, and you can get up to $50 of free money to start making some bank. Again, that's monkeyknifefight.com, and the promo code is TNFF at your first deposit to start playing today. All right, Brian. Yeah, so for anybody who hasn't seen Making Bank yet, it is a segment where we are going to go through some of these DFS player prop games on Monkey Knife Fight. We're going to toss a couple buy-ins down, try and make a little bit of cheddar, as the name of the show says. So I'm just going to share my screen here, Brian. We've got two more or less contests that we've decided to get into. So I'm going to share that screen, and we will get into the first one. This one is actually extremely interesting. It's a 2 out of 2 with a 3.5 times multiplier. So if we get both of these right, we multiply the buy-in by 3.5, which is nice. A lot of these 2 out of 2s are often 3 times, but Monkey Knife Fight decided to beef that up for us, and we like that. So getting into the lines that we're going to be looking at, the first one we've got is Davante Adams playing at Houston this week, and the line for him is 7.5 receptions. And then the second one is Derrick Henry playing at home against your Pittsburgh Steelers, Brian. And that line is 88.5 rushing yards. So these are two really interesting ones, because these are guys that are pretty high volume and pretty big producers. So why don't you kick it off with Davante Adams there, Brian, and talk about what you think about that 7.5 reception line and whether you would go with the more or the less option.
I think with this one, with 7.5 receptions, I think we got to take the over on this. Davante Adams right now he's averaging 10 targets a game. In the first game, Rodgers leaned on him with 14 targets. He, even in a poor matchup last week against Tampa Bay, he had 10 targets. I think he only had 6 receptions, if I remember correctly. But I think it's really easy for him to make the over on this one here. Aaron Rodgers is coming off a bad game. Normally when he comes back, he's mad, wants to show the world that it was just a blip on the radar, and he's going to really go after Houston here.
Yeah, I think that's really well put, man. Houston, if you look at their defense, they have given up the 11th most passing yards in the league, as well as the 11th most receptions in the league overall. So I think that defense can definitely be had, and you were spot on with that. Davante Adams did hit six receptions in the pass game against Tampa Bay. He only hit 3 receptions in week 2 against the Lions, but he only played 52% snaps, so he went down with injury. In the first game of the season against Minnesota, 17 targets and 14 receptions. And we obviously know that
14 targets, 14 receptions.
Yeah, that is freaking incredible, man. So I really like it. I think I'm gonna side with you on the more option there. Also because keep an eye out for Aaron Jones, because he did not practice today, and there are reports that he could miss Sunday's game, and that's some extra receptions that could funnel towards Davante Adams. So I think we're spot on there going with the more option, and I'm ready to rock.
And Tanyan's banged up too. He wasn't practicing. He was just doing rehab work on the Friday practice report. Anyway, I didn't see anything the Thursday practice report.
Right.
Didn't see anything from today yet.
I think I saw that he was actually limited today. So
Okay.
definitely something to monitor as we move into the Sunday games and adjust lineups accordingly with Tunyon, because obviously tight end is a pretty sketchy position. And a lot of people have been thinking they could kind of rely on him. So they might have to make other plans going into week 7 there. So why don't we move into the Derrick Henry matchup? That is a super intriguing one because in most matchups, I think we would probably say that Derrick Henry is going to smash that 88 and a half rushing yards. But then you look at Pittsburgh's defense, and they are one of the best actually the best in the league as far as rushing yards allowed. They've only allowed 331 rushing yards this season in 6 games. So that's like just over 50
It's
rushing yards per game in total. It's incredible.
it's 66.2 is I was able to pull up yards per
Totally.
game that they're allowing right now. Plus, the Titans have a banged up the offensive line. They just lost Taylor Lewan to a torn ACL,
Mm-hmm.
and Pitts, they're going to blitz them. They're not going to allow Henry to get going, and because they know Tennessee likes to lean on that run game, and they're not going to allow him.
Yeah, I think that was well said, man. I think that's what Pittsburgh is going to have to do in order to neutralize that Tennessee Titans offense. Because when Derrick Henry is chugging along, I think the passing game goes with him, right? It gets way more effective when Derrick Henry is running the rock and bringing that attention to the defense. So I think you're right in that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try and make them win through the air. We have seen Ryan Tannehill do that this season and late in last season. But I think even though he has done that and exploited some teams who have tried to do that, I think the Pittsburgh defense is an entirely different animal this year, man. That defense is so good.
Well, we saw it on the very first Monday night game. Barkley, what did he have? 15 rushes for 9 yards or something like that.
Yeah,
It,
that's
it just
definitely not going to
smothered
cut
him.
it.
No.
They're smothering everybody right now, as we saw with the Browns last week, who have a really
Yeah,
potent run
that
game.
too.
They couldn't get it move in, and the Steelers mopped the floor with them, actually. So the Steelers are looking really good as we come to the midway point of the season. Just as far as just as a team moving into the playoff push, they're looking like they're set up really well for that.
Yeah, they are.
So with that, Brian, I think we both would agree that we're going to go for the less option on Derrick Henry.
For sure, less. Yeah.
I love it. So just to summarize this one for Devontae Adams, we have selected more as far as the 7.5 reception line. And then for Derrick Henry, we have taken the less on 88.5 rushing yards. So I think that's a really good one. We're going to drop 10 on there, Brian, just because tonight we're doing a couple of different ones. So we'll drop a 10 spot on there, and then we'll drop a 10 spot on the other one. I got to get this account beefed up and get some W's under my belt. So hopefully this episode just does just that, my friend.
Sounds
Submit.
good.
Alrighty, that one is submitted. We're going to roll into a new game. We are going to stick with a more or less 2-2. We're even going to stick with the same early game slate. And then as I scroll over, we wanted to hit. This is the one we're going to hit. Julio Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, a couple of studs, couple of players that we rely on in our rosters. The line on Julio is 91.5 receiving yards, and the line on Zeke is 82.5 rushing yards. So, Brian, do you have any quick thoughts on the Julio one to start with? Anything that jumps out there for you, or any points that make you lean in a certain direction?
I think Julio's a tough one, right? Because anytime Julio can smash the over, any day. It all depends on if he's going to stay healthy. If he's like he was last week, we saw him go and absolutely dominate. So I think as long as you're planning on seeing him for the whole game, I think he can go out and hit this over on the 91.5. And if you look at PFF, his cornerback matchup is really good for him. Against I should have picked one that I could actually pronounce the last name.
Amani
Oruwariye.
Oh, okay.
Like
yeah. No clue.
So,
no clue.
But yeah, PFS says it's a good matchup for him, and anytime he's got a favorable matchup, I'm gonna roll him in. So I think
Absolutely.
I'd take over on this one.
For sure. And I'm with you for a couple of reasons. So just about regarding his health. So the point total actually on this game is 55 over under. And I kind of expect it to be a little bit of a shootout as well. And Julio was limited in practice on Friday. He's looking probable to play. Julio or Calvin Ridley was limited as well. And Russell Gage was a full participant. So it kind of looks like all three of those guys are probably going to go. One thing with this line for Julio is it looks like a really large line, but in Julio's 4 games this year, in the 2 of the 4 that he hit 80% snaps, he did hit this line. He actually smashed this line out of the park in those 2 games. So much like you said, if he's healthy, he's going to get those snaps and he'll probably hit this. One thing that I really liked when I was digging into Julio was that the Falcons have been using him in the slot a little bit more. Right now, he's in the slot about 25% of his snaps, whereas last year it was only about 18%. And he's hauled in 7 of 10 targets for 144 yards and a touchdown on those slot targets that he's had. So I think they will try to probably move him around a little bit. And I don't know if the Detroit defense can handle that. So for me, after the week that he had last week, I'm going to keep rolling that train with Julio and go for the more option as well. It's funny, Brian, because if you look at Detroit's defense, they're kind of middle of the pack as far as receiving yards allowed to the wide receiver. But overall, to every position, they have allowed the 4th fewest passing yards in the league. So it's a really interesting matchup because Detroit's defense against the pass isn't as bad as we might think at first glance, right? So a good matchup, but I think we're kind of spot on going with that more option there.
Yeah.
And then Zeke with that super interesting hair with the big crater down the center of it. It's funny. No Cam Newton though. I'll give him that. It's not quite as good as Cam's flow, but Zeke looking fresh with the fro as always. That line of 82 and a half.
I can't even look at it and not laugh, man. He looks like a cartoon character.
Oh man. But yeah, so this game, Brian, the over-under is set at 44 and a half points. So they are playing in Washington against the old football team. And that line of 82 and a half rushing yards seems reasonable for Zeke, especially with a lot of people thinking that this offense was going to lean on him with Andy Dalton coming into the fold. I think we didn't necessarily see that this past week with the Cardinals kind of blowing the Cowboys out. So I think the Cowboys are kind of
fumbling twice.
Absolutely. Yeah. He only had 12 totes in that game. And then the Cardinals kind of tore them up a little bit. So I think the Cowboys kind of have to trust him. Obviously he fumbled, but they paid him a lot. He is a good running back. They're going to have to trust him. And I think they've now seen that Andy Dalton is not going to be a seamless transition to keep the passing offense afloat, much like Dak did, right? There was a lot of people out there saying that there's no change, but it was a big change this past week. So what are you thinking on that 82 and a half rushing yards for Zeke?
I think with that one, I'm going to take the more on that one too. Right now, Washington, they're giving up the 9th most yards to the rushing yards per game. And like you said, it wasn't a seamless transition going to Andy Dalton. Zeke had a couple fumbles, but I think they start feeding him in this game. Just use him,
totally.
Get Andy Dalton, get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, I think you said it really well on the Washington defense there. It's interesting because they have those really good defensive linemen, but they actually have been pretty bad against the run. Their opponents have gone over 120 rushing yards in the last 5 games straight. And 2 players have hit the over on this line against them, Nick Chubb and actually Kenyon Drake. So it can definitely be done. I think Zeke is definitely up in the tier with those guys. The offensive line injuries do worry me a little bit for Dallas, but I think Zeke is going to get more volume than he got against the Cardinals. And I think with that baseline of volume, he can hit this 82 and a half because I don't see them getting behind against Washington. If they get ahead by a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, they're going to be running the rock. So I am with you, Brian. I think we're going to go more on that one. And I think we're making some bank, buddy. I think we're going to get this account. We're going to get this account topped up right quick.
The wife will be happy.
Or Or exactly, yeah, exactly. So just to summarize there, we went for Julio Jones to get more than 91.5 receiving yards and Ezekiel Elliott to get more than 82.5 rushing. So I like it. We're going to submit that bad boy. Okay. And I will stop that share screen. So yeah, Brian, this was fun. The Making Bank epis are just nice little short epis for people to catch before they go into the game. So I appreciate you coming on, buddy. How was your first podcasting experience, albeit a short one?
It was good. It was fun. It
Yeah.
was nice to get my feet wet before we start doing this again.
Absolutely, man. Make sure you tell the wife that I appreciate her letting you sneak away from the baby to get the time to come on and do it because I've
No
been really excited
problem.
to get you doing some more of this stuff as well. So if anybody who's watching, make sure you go to the site truenorthffb.com. Brian's pumping out the articles over there. It's always really good stuff. Brian, your Dynasty Radar article is one of my favorites that we drop whenever you drop that one. It's really good. Kind of in-season check-ins on Dynasty players, right?
Yeah, it's in-season check-ins, see how things are going. Maybe some players that are coming up, getting a little bit more snaps. Maybe you can sneak them into some trade deals and start building your bottom of your lineup.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's a really good read every time you put it out. So anybody who's watching, keep an eye out there. Go follow Brian at the FF80 Aviator. Brian, I know we ended that game, but if any of the viewers saw, they may have seen that game was no longer active for Monkey Knife Fight. So I actually just went back in to see what it is, and it's actually in our favor. They changed it up a little bit. So when I pop in there, the line for Julio just went down 11.5 receiving yards, down to 80.5. So just as a quick check-in, we will get this one submitted. We're going for Julio for more than 80.5, which I think is money in the bank now that I look at it. And then Derrick Henry to stay under that 88.5. So
Wait,
just
they
so we're
changed the player.
authentic.
It
Oh,
used to be
it
Zeke.
was Julio and Zeke. Shit. Well,
Yeah,
look at that. That's two
but we
times
we
on
already
Derrick
covered
Henry.
Derrick Henry as well.
Totally. So we got him in there twice. Sorry about that, Zeke, but you got cut, buddy. Even though we think you might
Too
have a
many
good
fumbles.
game. Yeah, exactly. You got cut from our DFS entries. So yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of does it for Monkey Knife Fight. That's the tricky part about this stuff is these lines can change all the time. So it's really good to jump in there and you get some early lines and see some stuff you can exploit. And I think that 80.5 receiving yards for Julio is going to be a really nice one for us. So Brian, thanks again for joining, man. I really, really appreciate it. This has been fun. Can't wait to do it again and make some bank. So anybody who wants to get onto Monkey Knife Fight, our promo code is TNFF, and that qualifies you for an instant match of your first deposit of up to $50. So again, that's monkeyknifefight.com, promo code TNF if you want to start getting in there and stacking some chips. So until next time, Brian, we will do this again. And thanks everybody for listening. Peace.